Hey everybody, my name is Adonis and I'm actually standing in a completed investment property, and in this module we're talking final punch. Now, depending on your investment strategy is going to typically dictate how aggressive you want to be in your final punch. Now, what do I mean by that? Some things, when you're going for a flip, you want to be very, very particular about the things that you capture in your final punch. Whereas in a rental, you can kind of let a few things slide based on the fact that at some point in the future, you may have to renovate the house after a tenant moves out. So we're going to walk through room by room and identify how to properly call items in your final punch, and based on your investment strategy, whether it's worth getting rectified or just passing over, since it won't necessarily impact what you're doing next. So we're going to jump in room by room and identify what's going to happen in your final punch. Now, when I first walk into a room, I assess two things. First, how does the room make me feel aesthetically? Cosmetically, what is my first impression? How does the paint look? The floors, the light fixtures, drywall texture, outlets, covers, switches. How does everything present itself? Then I start evaluating the functionality of everything. So in this case, we're going to pick one section of the room to start in, and then we're going to check cosmetically and its functionality, and then work our way around the room. So first instance, my intake vent for the HVAC system. Now, at first glance, it's not clogged, it's not dirty, so functionally, it's okay. Cosmetically, subpar. Now, based on my strategy, since this house is a particular rental, I'm not going to pay too much attention to this. However, if I was flipping this house, this is something that you'd want to replace because you want this to present very well. All right, as I move on, my closet. First thing I do is I check its functionality. Does it open and close properly? Does it latch? Does it rub against the bottom or top or the sides? So functionally, the closet seems to look and function properly. Looking into the closet, are there any gaps around the floor trim? Is the handle itself or the closet rod sturdy? Does the light switch work, if applicable? Now, here's one thing that people often do not consider. When you're looking at the closet, cosmetically, it may look fine, but very rarely do people actually step into the closet. And when you step in, you'll notice a couple things. The first thing is the interior of the closet is actually missing trim. So this is something that is often overlooked. And in the flip project, this would be the reason why your buyer believes the quality of work is subpar. And now this becomes a talking point for a reduced price. So you want to pay attention to stuff that often isn't considered. Another thing you need to pay attention to, has pests entered the property since you last completed? Now, if you notice, there are some bugs in this corner. What that means, again, is that for a buyer or a renter, they're going to want you to actually put something in place to get rid of pests. So these are things you should be very mindful of as you're going through. Next item, the cable lines. Now, although everyone enjoys having cable, this is not good for a presentation. Functionally irrelevant. But I would get rid of that as part of making the room more aesthetically pleasing. When I'm coming over to my windows, do my blinds work? Do they properly go up and go down? Does my window actually have a lock on it? And in this case, does stuff fall off the window when I open and close? So we have a functioning lock. We have a functioning blind set. So this is something that I would include on my punch. My front door. Does the front door open and close properly? Does the deadbolt latch? Does the knobs latch? Do they lock properly? And depending on the state you're in, do any of the additional locks that are required as part of a rental property? Do my light switch work? Do they stick or do they hold or catch? So you want to pay attention to the different things. And for example, I have an outlet that does not seem to be functional. Now, as part of my punch, would I want to spend the money to have an electrician remove this? Or do I just say, hey, it's a rental property, no one will use it, just go ahead and ignore it? Now that's for you as the investor to decide, but this is also something that you want to be mindful of. Our ceiling fan. Does the ceiling fan work? Does it turn on? Does it go through the 3 levels? These are things that you want to check every room, because no matter how extensive you are in your search, the more information you know about what does and does not work, the better you are prepared to deal with your tenant or buyer. Now that I'm done with the living room, I'll start coming down the hallway to one of the bedrooms. So same thing, I evaluate first impression, then I'll start checking functionality. Do the light switch works? The carbon monoxide and the smoke detectors, are those functioning properly? So I'll spot check every light switch, and I'll also be checking the cosmetic finish out of the flooring, the paint, the ceilings, and light fixtures. I'll also spot check to make sure the thermostat kicks on. So I'll actually turn the heat on and the AC just to make sure that my thermostat is functioning properly. I'll open up, take a look inside my furnace closet to make sure that the furnace itself looks to be intact, and also get an evaluation of any potential leaks or something that may constitute necessary maintenance. So from the hallway, we're going to walk into the first bedroom. And typically we do the same evaluation system in this bedroom that we do everyone else. How do I look? How does the room look cosmetically? And then we check basic functionality. Now again, depending on your strategy, some of the issues in the drywall may be a problem, but for a rental, this is acceptable. Now, should you be flipping a house, this is typically always unacceptable for a flip project. So this is be something that is added to your punch. Pay attention to bubbling in the walls, inconsistency in the texture, or just sections that were not properly textured after a general repair. Make sure that you have functioning smoke detectors, as that is a requirement in most states, regardless of what your investment strategy is. Do you have cables that are hanging out the wall, or do you have outlet covers that don't seem to fit properly over the actual outlet? So as you're going through, again, you also want to have pretty much a tester to plug into each outlet to make sure each outlet is functioning properly. In this case, our closet door is behind our entry door. Does the closet door open and close? Does the light switch work? You'll notice that we have a closet rod missing. Now, this is not something that is maybe negligent on behalf of the general contractor. This may be simple oversight. So most things you want to consider that the general contractor or your repair person isn't necessarily not doing it. Maybe they just overlooked it. Another thing to also consider, does my door hit the wall? And if it does, do I have a proper door stop? You'll notice that 2 previous door stops have been removed. So you want to add a door stop to make sure that you're not creating unnecessary repair work. So coming out of the bedroom, we're now heading into the bathroom. So first thing I consider when I come into the bathroom, again, cosmetically, how does it look? But in the bathroom, we're more focused on the functionality, because this is where you're going to have your biggest issues. So first thing, we're going to come to the sink. Does the hot water and the cold water turn on? Does the hot water actually turn hot? Does your plunger work? Does it open and close? And does it actually hold water? Okay. Next thing we do, we're actually going to make sure the vanity itself is actually fixated to the wall. You'll notice that the vanity has some wiggle. That means the first time someone hits against it, it may create a major plumbing issue. We'll always check underneath. Do we have any current leaks? So I'll actually go ahead and touch the pipes all the way around to make sure we don't have any current wet spots. Now you'll notice that there's water at the base of the cabinet. Is this from a current leak or a previous leak? So we want to be mindful of what's happening under here, because this is typically where you'll get the bulk of your problems, especially when you have a tenant. Coming over here, is my towel holder sturdy, right? Is my light fixture sturdy? Is my toilet, does the tank wobble aggressively? Does it flush properly? Does my toilet itself move or shake? Is my toilet seat sturdy? Is my tissue holder firm? So all of these things you'll notice in just the 30 seconds, we've identified a handful of issues. Now coming in, looking at the tub. Does the tub water turn on properly? Does it hold water? Is my faucet spout loose? Is my shower head loose? So again, these are issues that when you're renting or selling, you're going to have to get rectified regardless of your investment strategy. And if you don't fix these early, they can be very pricey later on. Now that I finished up my bathroom, I'm checking out my laundry room. So there's 5 key things that I'm looking for when I'm evaluating my punch in the laundry room. First thing is my washer, my cold and hot water supply lines. So first of all, this should be encased in a laundry box. This is what I would call unacceptable regardless of your investment strategy. So I always check the supply lines. Then next, my drain line. Is this an acceptable drain line? And I also want to check to make sure it's not clogged or will potentially back up because that'll flood the unit. In this particular case, we have a screw that's sticking out, which means that this laundry room, when it was reconfigured, has a safety hazard. So you want to pay very, very close attention to any potential safety hazards. The next thing, my dryer plug. Is my dryer plug acceptable? Is it trimmed out and caulked properly to not create any potential safety hazards? My dryer vent. Is this a standard dryer vent? Is it clogged and does it actually exit the house? And then finally, do I have my proper outlet? Anytime there's an outlet close to a water supply source, it needs to be a GFI. So again, regardless of my investment strategy, this needs to be replaced to be a proper functioning GFI outlet. So once I've evaluated those close things, next thing I do is make sure I have a functioning door for my laundry room. So if my door doesn't latch or is off the tracks, that again may create some additional issues of work that needs to be done. Now that we're coming into our kitchen, again, kitchens and baths are what drive our values. And because that's where the source of our plumbing is also going to be the source of our biggest potential cost. So pay very close attention to your punch in the kitchen and the bathroom. So first thing, I always recommend that you do your flooring in the kitchen either be a tile, porcelain, or something to that effect, or even a vinyl plank. You also want to listen to see if any of the tile is loose or shaken. A lot of times when the tile gets set, you may find that 1 or 2 tiles are actually loose. So pay attention to any noise that you hear underneath your tile. I typically like to do my punch list before the appliances are delivered. So this way we can check to make sure we have proper outlets for the appliances that are going to go in. If you're dealing with a gas stove, make sure you have the proper gas line because there are different fittings and different sizes that are connected to your stove and your gas line. So just make sure to do a pre-check on this stuff, make sure everything works out. One thing I always typically like to do, especially when you replace your countertops, give it a good tug. Make sure that your countertop is not loose. Give it a good tug to make sure that it don't bounce up and down. So in a situation like this is a simple screw that can be added and now fully secure your countertop. Pay attention when you're dealing with older cabinets, especially ones that have been repainted. Make sure that the cabinet doors open and close and latch properly. Make sure also that the shelves have been painted or at least cleaned out, because very often the painters or the general contractor may paint the exterior but not touch the interior of the cabinet, which can really hurt the cosmetic aspect of it. Anytime you have outlets in your kitchen near a water source, it needs to be GFI. Coming around, I always like to give the sink faucet a tug just to make sure that it's not loose and that there's no wobble to it. Spot check hot water and cold water. And then again, I also pay attention, since the countertop is new, to make sure that the sink itself was installed properly. Now here you'll notice that there's a decent little gap between the sink and the countertop. So this is something that should be added to my punch list as an issue to be fixed. Always check underneath the sink, because if there is or was previously a leak, it may warp the wood underneath your kitchen sink. So you want to get under there to make sure that there's no mold and that this actual bottom cabinet or this bottom shelf has been painted and it looks cosmetically pleasing. Make sure to check your drawers, that all drawers open and close properly, and make sure that you check every handle to make sure you don't have any loose handles on your cabinet doors or your drawers. So you really want to get in and open every door and every drawer as part of evaluating your punch in your kitchen to make sure that nothing gets overlooked. Now that you've completed your walk of the house, it is very important to be mindful of a few things. One, It is much more expensive to bring someone out to fix a repair when the job has been done versus getting them to be fixed during your final punch. So you always want to be very assertive and make sure to thoroughly evaluate everything. This way, when you deliver your house to your buyer or renter, you won't have to bring someone back out and pay a premium. My name is Adonis Lockett. Thank you for watching Final Punch, and we'll see you in the next module.